In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front drive shaft on this Jeep Liberty. Located on the driver's side underneath the vehicle, connects the transfer case to the front differential. Let's install this TRQ drive shaft. As you can see, this oxygen sensor coming out of the catalytic converter is going to be in our way for removing the drive shaft. So let's remove the O2 sensor, that way we don't damage it. Follow the sensor and you'll see where the wire leads. This right here is the electrical connector for the sensor. Unwedge the wire, push on the tab, and pull the connector right off. Okay. You can use an oxygen sensor socket or a 22mm wrench and break this free. With it broken free, unthread it all the way and remove it from the exhaust pipe. At the back of the drive shaft where it connects to the transfer case, you'll see 6 8mm headed bolts with an extension and a swivel. You should be able to get to them with a power tool unless you have another way of getting to them. Take them all out. You should be able to spin the drive shaft to get to more of the bolts. All right, all the bolts are out. The CV joint here on the drive shaft is actually pressed in to this yoke on the transfer case, so we have to pry it to get it out. Hopefully your drive shaft is not as stuck as mine is. Unfortunately, because mine is, I have to remove this shield just so I can get better access from behind it and punch it out of the yoke on the transfer case. Like I said, hopefully you are able to just stick a pry bar through here, which I did try and it's not coming off. So taking this shield off, it's got 4 16mm headed bolts, so let's remove them all. This one you just have to loosen up. The bracket or the shield is slotted. There we go. Now I have much better access to tap this with a pry bar and a hammer. There we go. Now let's disconnect the other end of it. On the other end, you'll see 4 15mm headed bolts holding the drive shaft onto the front differential. Remove all of these as well. This is probably going to be rusted in place here, so I'm going to take a pry bar, try to pry it off. I strapped it with a bungee cord here so it can't fall out. I'm going to go back on the rear and try to punch it out the rest of the way. There's the drive shaft. Before reconnecting the drive shaft, let's clean up the mating surface. Otherwise, you may get some vibrations at higher speeds as you drive. And let's coat it with a light layer of anti-seize, that way it doesn't corrode in the future. Don't put a lot, because if you put too much, it'll start flinging everywhere as you drive. That's really not what you want to do. But a thin layer should prevent corrosion. Also get it inside this inner ring here. This is also where it can seize. Let's do the same in the rear. Now bring the drive shaft in and try to line it up. I'm going to try to line it up with the front first. Oh, okay. So that's on. Let's put the bolts in. I put some fresh blue thread locker on these front bolts. They're supposed to have some. Since I can, I'm just going to bring them pretty close by hand. Threads are nice and clean, so they're going in nice and smooth. Let's torque these to 80 foot-pounds. Okay, so that's bottomed out. To hold this and prevent it from spinning, I'm using a pry bar. Just be very careful not to ruin the seals on your U-joint. Okay, and I'm going to try and go in a cross pattern so I can make sure that this gets seated properly. All right, that's all of them at 80 foot-pounds. As for the rear, it does extend, so if it got compressed, then just push it in, but you do have to try to line up the bolt holes. I'm going to tap it with a rubber mallet. I have blue thread locker on these bolts as well, and I'm going to send them through. They are long enough to, at this point, hopefully grab onto some threads so I can pull the rest of this CV joint in with the bolts. Start these in slowly to make sure they actually start into their threads. If they don't line up, like it is the case for me, you're gonna have to punch this back out and get it to, well, line up. Okay, that looks like it is approximately where it should be. So let's try this again. Yes. I'm gonna go in a cross pattern for this, so spin it around to the other side. .22 foot-pounds is the torque for all of these. You're probably going to have to hold the drive shaft from the other end of it so you can actually torque it to 22 foot-pounds. Because they're all snugged up, I'm going to go in a circle, but I will mark the first one with a yellow crayon so that I know where I started. Otherwise, I'm just going to go around, well, probably too many times. If you wanted to double check them, go around one more time, but mine are tight, so let's move on. Reinstall the oxygen sensor. I put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads. You don't have to put too much. This should hopefully prevent it from seizing in the future. And since this is out in the open, take a 22mm wrench, snug it up. I like to give it about half a turn, 3/4 at most after it bottoms out. All you need is to crush that little crush washer, and that'll seal it up nice and tight. Route your wire, and we'll plug it in. Make sure it's out of the way of the drive shaft and the exhaust. When you plug it in, make sure it clicks. Tuck it behind here, and there you have it. Since I have to take this shield off, I'm going to put it back on. It had a total of 4 16mm headed bolts, one of which over there didn't come out because the bracket or the shield itself is slotted. So just put back all the ones you took out and snug them up.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.